Normally, when the neuron isn't creating an action potential, there are sodium ions outside the neuron and potassium ions inside. This means that the inside of the cell is negatively charged, compared to the outside. It's about negative 70 millivolts. To begin creating an action potential, a stimulus, like hearing someone say your name, causes a few sodium channels to open to allow sodium ions to enter the cell. This causes the resting potential of the cell to become less negative. This process is called depolarization. Once the resting potential of the cell reaches the threshold, or about negative 55 millivolts, the rest of the sodium channels in that part of the neuron open, and many sodium ions flood into the cell, causing the resting potential to become even more positive. Once the resting potential of the cell reaches its peak, two things happen. The sodium channels close, trapping the sodium ions inside, and the potassium channels open, letting the potassium ions leave the cell. As the potassium ions leave the cell, the resting potential goes back towards its normal negative 70 millivolts. This is called repolarization. As more and more potassium ions leave the cell, the resting potential of the cell actually goes below what it normally is because there are more potassium channels open at this period than there are during the cell's normal resting state, meaning that there are more potassium ions outside the cell. This is called hyperpolarization. While this process is happening, the sodium ions inside the cell move along inside the cell, creating a chain reaction and opening more sodium channels and causing the process to happen further and further down the cell. This progression down the cell is the action potential, or an electrical signal that travels the length of the neuron and eventually triggers other action potentials in other neurons.